Hello, friends. I like when I see my notes that give me some of myself back. Not that I've been missing for myself. I'm not. I don't ever go missing from myself. Just feeling it today. Feeling being human. Feeling what it means to be me. Hello, Omar. Waiting. So if you're watching this in the replay, it's just you and I now, right? The replay. Most people don't get to see this part. We're just waiting. Hi, Ingrid. I really do appreciate when people join me. And today especially. Just to be together. In the not knowing. In the not having answers. Yeah. And the discomfort of that. And the helplessness of that. And the reality of that. That, oh man, I forget who or where or what it was that said it. I shared it. I wish I could remember, just to, give praise where praise is deserved. Hi, Dolores. Something about, things are not okay right now. In the world, and you'll be okay. It was something like this, and it was very true, because I'm not here to say, oh, everything's great and everything's wonderful, and because I actually live in the real world. That's where I live. I don't know about you, but I actually live in the real world, and I live a very privileged position. I live in one of the wealthiest countries in Europe. I am a white woman. I have access to medical care and clean water and incredible infrastructure. I live in a social... I'm sorry, my brain is not functioning the way that I want it to. In the intellectual aspects of it, I'm feeling very much, right? I think Tinder is on the menu. And I feel Tinder every day. Sometimes it's just stronger like it is today. I often say that if I'm not feeling tender, I haven't been paying attention. So I like to pay attention. That's where I like to come from, is paying attention to the world that I live in. So we live in like a socialist democracy in Switzerland, meaning that, no, capitalist, socialist, capitalist, social capitalism. So we are taxed really highly, and therefore we have like universal health care, which just means the more money you have, the more you pay for your insurance, and the less money you have, the less you pay. Some people don't pay at all. But it's on like a sliding scale, and nobody is paying exorbitant amounts, right? It's just if you make more money, you pay more to help subsidize people that don't or can't pay for their insurance. So it's a social capitalist structure that people like always talk, in certain countries are like, this is terrible. I'm like, it's actually not so bad. And I live in a really tiny country, right? So logistics are easier in a small country for the population of a small country. The logistics are easier. I don't know why I'm telling you that. Now I forgot where I was. But tenderness. Let's just stay right here. That's helpful. Like tears today, tender. Just, I don't want to use the word processing, because I'm not processing anything. It's awareness of the world. Or an awareness of the things in the world. I'm going to clean the camera here. Excuse me. Did that help? I don't know. The awareness of what's going on in the world. I don't do a lot of talking to like ChatGPT or whatever it is, or AI, but like the questions I ask AI is, or that I speak to AI about, is being a military abolitionist, I'm absolutely 100% stand and die on a hill that weapons are unnecessary. And I will stand 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 there for the rest of my life, whatever that brings. Yeah, tears tender cried a lot already. Yep, tender care is needed for me. And I used to I used to feel like there was something terribly, terribly wrong with me, that I am so kind of tapped in to the actual suffering that's taking place in the world. And, people who are close to me sometimes get worried that I'm getting too distracted, or, and with good reason. I mean, there were times in my life where I didn't know how to function outside of just absorbing. And now I do. I have boundaries. I can hold the tenderness that I am, and I know that this is just the way that I am. And it does not affect... Listen, these are not the right words. I'm still able to function, for the most part. You can see where I struggle, right? And it's always these moments, I teach skill sets for the real world, for maturity. And they often say, too, you learn all these skill sets. Hi, Michelle. You have all this toolkit, skill sets, coping. You go to therapy. You have all the things. Hi, Tila. And there are going to be times where none of it fucking matters and none of it is fucking useful. And that is and needs room in your life. That, like, you could throw all your skill sets at it. You can throw all your mechanisms at it, and you still are only just going to have to feel and be human right now. There's going to be no way out of that experience. There's going to be no way to process. There's going to be no way to push away. There's going to be no other way but that your humanity moves to the forefront, and you just are whatever you are, whatever that is. Today, this is tenderness, where I'm just like, wow, man, this fucking took me out today. And for me, I really, truly advocate for a world that works for everyone. And I base that value set on a world that works for children, works for everybody. And right now, the world, even in my country, even where I live, is not working for children. It's not working for children. And I feel tender about that. And it's not just here, and it's not only in the Middle East and Palestine what's happening. It's not only in Congo. It's not only in Venezuela. It's everywhere. It's not working for children. I don't have any answers. I don't have any way that I can change it. None. And so there's helplessness. Hopelessness. There's just like, fuck. There's anger. But it is mostly just grief. And tender is a beautiful thing. It reminds us that we are soft and gentle in this sometimes harsh world. Yeah. And I won't be different, right? Like, I refuse to be indifferent. I refuse to compartmentalize what I'm feeling. Because when I did do that, I wasn't well. I wasn't well. I wasn't allowing the wholeness that it is to be me, right? That even my very privileged position in life can be hard sometimes. And the tenderness of the vulnerability, there's such a vulnerability in tenderness, but it doesn't, I find a lot of strength here. So, hi Heather, even though I feel tender, and with tenderness, it's like I feel like I am porous, right? There's no veil, there's no walls, there's no armor. I'm also not like in danger, nor do I need to defend myself. I'm in a safe space. It's not like I've collapsed or something like that, right? There's a pulsating vitality here too, in this tenderness and this willingness to just be where I am, right? And of course, I have a Western mind just like all of you guys. Of course, it's like, oh, you're in the middle of launch and you're trying to sell this year-long course. And if you're you shouldn't let people see you that way. You shouldn't let people see you like this. You shouldn't, talk about these specific things. That's just a thought. That's a asinine way of thinking. Because who I am innately is like, okay, people see me like this, and that's a bona fide reason for them to not want to be here in a free conversation, by the way. That's okay. Good for both of us. I have been able to cultivate who I am in the world, including on social media, as being myself. Does that mean I've lost business? Maybe. Quite possibly. I'm not really paying attention to that part, right? Other than, 2 or 3 people that have to DM me on their way out to let me know. I'm not aware of it. And this is such a colonized way to think, right? That I'm just here doing this so that I can make you think I'm something. A fucked up idea. And since I've been doing this, the Maori healing that I'm doing, that I learned so many things just being submerged in their culture. And so for those of you that don't know, or I feel like I talk about it all the time, but I might not be, I'm been doing this work for 6 years, and now I'm doing it on 100 people for free in my own community. It's hands-on body healing work. It's not massage, it's healing. Very different. Very, very different to what the Western world is used to, and very differently applicable. And it's for free, but really it's a community project. It's what I give back for being given the knowledge that I have been given. And I may continue to do it for koha, which is donation-based after that, only by donation. Not by coercion, not by coercing people to come. In fact, I'm very cautious, as are the people that come to me, in recommending this to people. Because it requires, in the healing space, I think the Western world, my grandmother in Portugal would teach me healing when I was a little girl. And it has a lot to do with touching ourselves and touching each other. But the Western world's idea of healing is like, I lay down and something is done to me. Or I go to an event or a retreat and something is done to me. I'm sharing what I'm sharing now because it is what has me tender as well. It's a part of what has me in the space of like, shit. It's like the Western-minded thinking really gets in the way a lot of times. And people, so the premise of what I do, right, on the table is the person has to talk to me. We are in a conversation. Anybody who comes into it is like, this is super intimate, right? Which super intimate is my jam, no matter what I'm doing. But it's done in my living room, which means my family is here. They are prepared for what that means, which means people come and go. It could be the postman comes. It could be the next person coming in for their session comes. It's an open room. It's not done in private. Healing is not supposed to be this hidden thing. And the way it's done in the Maori tradition is it's like 3 or 4 or 10 practitioners working in a room together. And since I cannot simulate that here because I don't have that, I do the best that I can, which is keeping the open room and keeping other people flowing in and out. And people who have only seen this, walked through the house or walked by briefly or come to drop something off and have seen it, have commented on how I'm not doing it right. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't even know what I'm doing. But that this should be, behind closed doors. This should be private. That's the Western-minded way of thinking, right? It should be private. You shouldn't do it the way I was taught to do it, which is in the open. And and I've just been sitting with that being like, shit, wow. There's no way in fuck I'm going to do this any different than the way it was taught to me. I will not bastardize this. I will not colonialize it. I will do the work exactly how I was taught to do it. I will not waver. I will not waver. And even though I can't culturally create it, you know, like in my Swiss culture, like out there, I can create that culture inside my house. In the place that I do healing work, I can create that and I can maintain that, and I will do that. I just can't not do it. It's not integral for me to not do it that way. And the pushback is not from anybody who's ever been on my table, which I find really fascinating, right? The people that get on the table, for whatever it's worth, really trust, even though they don't know what they're doing, they know what they're getting on. I do have a waiver that's goes very into depth and tells people what it is and what they need to be prepared for, and that they can't really be prepared for everything, that healing doesn't know anything about time, right? So the sessions go between 40 minutes and 90 minutes, depending on what the body needs. And I think it's just coming from this liberated, innate thinking that I talk about a lot, and bringing something that is completely liberated, that has not been colonized, into the Western-minded, a very Western-minded culture, is I love it and I won't stop, but I feel sad. I feel a bit sad about some of the pushback, you know, or let's call it a lack of an education on keeping an open mind. It's not really pushback. I'm in a breakdown place right now, and your healing way sounds so humane, and what I wish was here for me now. Thank you for telling us, because the energy of it is helping me so much today. Yeah, well, thank you for allowing your breakdown, right? We allow ourselves to collapse, and what comes out of that is just more of our humanity and our wholeness. It's not something to be avoided, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Healing in the open. It's not supposed to be hidden. Right? It's not this thing that I think that there need to be guidelines of or protocols, guidelines of how we share. Hi, Michelle. How we heal out loud. You know, in community, there's almost always guidelines about like how we talk about, who we talk about, how it's shared, how it's done, and all of that is very important. But in the Western world, mostly up until this point, people, including me, up to a certain point in my healing journey, and healing isn't curing, and healing is something we're doing every day till the day we die, and that's just my premise. I think it's important that you know that when I'm talking about healing, I'm not saying, oh, there's this, you're healed and you'd be done and walk out and da. That's not what healing is in my life, or in my, in my experience. But in the Western world, it's like the onus on healing is put on the individual person. Hi, Sophie. Right? The individual. The individual goes to therapy. The individual gets diagnosed. The individual gets healing or does the healing. Where innately, when we're in our natural way of thinking and being, we heal together with others, and it's necessary. So in the Western world, you can go pretty far on a healing journey all by yourself. I highly recommend it. And then there will be a point where you need healthy community, and even if that community is only 3 people, including you, we will need a healthy, functioning other persons in the open to truly find the relational healing that we need as human beings. In the Western world, the onus of healing is put on individuals as if individuals are the cause of their trauma or their injury. They are not. And it's a big mess. They heal together. Community comes together to heal. In fact, knowing that, I think I've said this before. So the healing, the Maori healing is called Romi Romi. And my teacher is Atarangi Muru. And this is a it belongs to her and her lineage and her teachers. And hold up, I gotta pull up who they are because I want to, who I know they are to be. I think it's important that when I'm talking about them, I have it. I can tell you that myself. Sorry guys, just I was not expecting this, but I really do want to tell you. It's important for me to say this so that I also continue to learn the wording. I would love to do that if I could find where the heck I put it. Duh, right in front of my face. Okay. I'm really good with this computer things. Okay. My teacher is Mallory Elder Atarangimaru. The teachings are the intellectual property of Atarangimaru and her teachers, Auntie Bella Nathan, Auntie Pearl Allen, Auntie Henny Phillips, Faya Skipper, Papa Joe Delamere, Mano Coreva. So that's the lineage that I have been taught from and by. And I do my very best to follow the instructions. The healing work that we do can be uncomfortable. It can even be painful on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. So sometimes you put your hand, I put my hand on somebody and there's pain there. And the Western minded thinking goes, Shanti hurt me. Shanti's doing this to me. When in fact, I've only touched the body. The pain was already there. The pain is not transferring through my hand into their body. The pain was already there. Me touching the body helps to release that pain that was already there. But this is really hard for the Western mind, hi Ryan, to grasp, right? It's like if I feel pain on my body and somebody's touching me, it must be the person who's touching me and not my body that has pain. I'm not sure, I didn't learn anything about a pain body, but I'm just talking about when I touch somebody in pain. So that alone, and because there's pain involved, the person laying on the table and I have to talk. And we have to breathe together. And we walk through the healing session dancing together. I just know where to touch. I just know what I've been taught to do. When that person sits up from the session and stands up and has had a healing, who's the healer? It's not me. That person's tissues and body responded to the work. That person is their own healer. I help to facilitate by knowing what to do and where to touch from the lineage that I was taught. And how could I, it's kind of like I feel like being given this a knowledge. I feel a great responsibility to it. And that means to me not bastardizing it, not playing it down. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Sarah. I wanted to say Sarah Bender all at once. So in our healing, we are our own healers, our own best healers, and we still need each other, and we need groups, and we need to not be doing it in a hidden space. It's not dirty. Healing isn't like this dirty thing, right? It's not this private, secret, hidden thing. I can understand that it feels that way, or it feels like it needs to be private sometimes. That's not what I'm saying. But the part where it goes from, it's the individual's responsibility to heal themselves, it isn't the truth. It's not the whole truth. It's the Western world's truth. Person goes to therapy, person gets diagnosed, person gets medicine, individual person gains coping mechanisms, individual person works through their things. It doesn't address the systems and environments that people are living in. It doesn't address the abhorrent lack of community that many of us are living in. This isolation, nuclear family, alone, single people living alone in a house. That's the thing about being a hands-on body worker, is touching a body and being like, this person has not been touched, just generally, like for years, is the weirdest thing to feel in somebody's tissue. They haven't been touched. We need touch. We need touch so bad. It's a human need. I think the Western world keeps things private or hidden because there are a lot of healers that aren't really healing, so it's hidden, so it's not revealed, and that's not healing. Does that make sense? It makes sense because it's that way by design. It's corrupt. It's not the real thing, right? So if it's corruption, it's got to be hidden. It's got to be used. It's got to be like some secret thing that the healer has that the person who comes to the healer doesn't, right? Some secret knowledge. And it's like, this is what Atarangi tells me. When, I said, well, there's so many people, there's so many things I've seen working with her and all of her team and my fellow students, that people in the Western world would call miracles. And she always says, stop it. This is not miraculous what we're doing. This is normal. And it should be normal everywhere. This is not magic. This is normal. This is human knowledge and understanding of the human system. And she said, and you can go everywhere in the world where there's any kind of intact culture like this, there's going to be similarities in the way that their medicine is built. It's just this Western colonialized thing has taken and twisted it. And I realized really early on that I was only going to get so far by myself. And I have had the glorious grace of, having 5 children and a husband. So I have my own little community that has helped to heal. But when I started to facilitate others in the work that I teach, it was at the time, it was like 1-to-1 was what you did, what I did, and it is so much harder. So much harder, 1-to-1. So much harder. And I started facilitating small groups up to 30, no more. And my favorite sweet spot when I work in groups is 15 people, including myself. And something really real and human starts to happen, right? You start to realize I'm not alone in the things that are hard. I'm not alone in the things that hurt me. I'm not alone in my tenderness. I'm not alone. This is not something, I'm not weird. Like, there's so many things that I talk about in my groups that we wind up talking about because we spend a year together. And people are like, how come there's nowhere else to talk about this? Like normal ass human shit. I'm not talking about anything, like remotely like out of the main thing that we talk about, but just normal shit. Normal human experience that we do not talk about. And so it makes people feel like they're alone. And so if you're in 1-to-1 with therapy first, and that can set up a hierarchy that makes the one in therapy, I don't know what that's called. I was going to the therapied person. I don't know. Hi, Priscilla. There can be a hierarchy there. And when I facilitate groups, I'm very quickly able to move into a hierarchy, which means I'm just one of the people sitting at the table. I facilitate the skill set, and then I sit back and I'm just a part of the group like everybody else. I'm not, I can joke and say, I'm just talking to you from the future of what it looks like when these skill sets are embodied. That's it. But not better than anyone in the group. And in the group setting, when we know we're not alone, when we realize my issues are not, they are unique to me, but they're not like, they don't make me inhuman, they make me more human. The way that we exponentially learning in the healing space is by being together. Is by being together. By talking to each other about the things that are tender to us, by talking about the things that are difficult, by talking about the things that bring us joy, by talking about the things that we have been taught not to talk about, really normal things that need to be discussed, right? Really normal things. Yeah, and yes, Dolores, we are the medicine. The we in there is the most important part. The we. And I just know that there's a kindness, a gentleness, a tenderness that is also fierce, that the Western mind cannot fathom. It will toggle between tenderness and right, and tenderness and authoritarian experiences. Like, I'm gonna, just as an example, I'm going to try to understand my 14-year-old who is not doing his school assignments. This is just reality for me because my son just came home before I came on here. At the same time, I'm watching my mind try to be like, he should do what I tell him to do. And what does this mean for his future? Because I have the same Western mind as everybody else. And I'm like, no, nah, I'm not gonna, no, that's not what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep helping him, keep teaching him, reminding him, helping him find ways to remind himself. It's not easy for him to remember. It's not like this giant horrible flaw that's going to ruin his future like the school wants to tell him it is. It's just something he has to work on. And he'll figure it out. And he's 14 and he doesn't have to figure it all out today. No way am I going to take on this authoritarian Western ideology of how to raise children. This generation under my youngest is 14. And the generation him and below, they are not easily manipulated by authority. They are not easily manipulated by threats. They are not easily manipulated by control. They are, they're something else. I feel really tender about their future. I really do. I'm also, there's some hope there too, but I feel really tender for what this means. You know, they're being taught by people, you know, from their early 20s to their like 70s, and all the generational misunderstandings that can happen from people who are indoctrinated into the authoritarian, Western-minded, linear, patriarchal way of thinking. And these children come up are just like, nah, we're not having it. Threaten us all you want. Tell us we're going to be failures in the future. That's just not going to work. It's just not going to work on that. And so I'm grateful for that. But it's very difficult when you've been indoctrinated, as I have, into the you do as I say, you do it right now kind of bullcrap. No, you can use fuck. I use fuck all the time. The Western world is so backwards, on purpose, of course. I've learned that whatever is the norm is a mind fuck. I agree. Hi, Stacy. I'm going to talk to you in a minute. Stace is one of my best friends. Yeah, and what do you do with a fucked up world? Hi, Ellen. I just feel tender about it. Do what I can in my one little tiny life, which doesn't feel like a whole lot often, right? It doesn't feel like a whole lot. It feels like it's never going to be enough. My grief, my rage, my sorrow isn't changing a goddamn thing. Hi, Shelley. Not changing a damn thing. And I think that currently a lot of people are coming face to face with that. I don't have answers. I don't have answers. I feel the truth of helplessness. The truth. It's not a mirage. It's not something I'm making up. I know where I'm useful. I know where I'm helpful. I do those things. And it's never gonna save people I would like to save. It's not going to change the things that are happening. There are so many things I don't have control of or over, and no amount of my grief, even though it feels like it could, circle the world and hold it tight, is going to change it. That helplessness, that tenderness. And knowing my helplessness doesn't keep me from grieving, doesn't keep me from raging, doesn't keep me from feeling what I feel. I just feel it. That's my commitment to myself. It's like, this is awful. This is horrible. And I can't do anything about it. And I watch all the ways I try to feel like I could do something about war and about politics and about everything that's horrible, that's not going right. I think it's also a reckoning of the truth about the amount of freedom we actually have in a legal government standard. 100%. I think that I felt this my whole life and known the disparities and understood the oppressives and the suppressed. It's just, I came wired that way. But I think that, this is how I'm feeling about the world at large is not new for me at all. Because I'm not, I've been in the liberation movement for a long time, probably since I was 5. We can always create our own internal sense of freedom, which is really the only freedom that exists. But then it's like, but I feel I understand liberation inside. I understand freedom inside. And no amount of pouring it out is going to change or give me answers. And there's truth in that. There's truth in that. There's truth in the helplessness of, I'm sitting here in my office, in my home, and I can't do shit about the militarization of our world. Which I would eradicate every kind of weapon that there is, because I find them all unnecessary. That's where I stand. I've always stood, right? 1000% against what violence, as we've been told, what it is. And you have to redefine what is violent, because our Western governments are violent as fuck. And you feel like you live in a safe and free place, come to realize that it's built on abject violence. And there's nothing I can do about it. I know there's some people like that, well, you can do this and you can do that. Yes, I understand. Right now, I'm standing in the reality of there's nothing I can fucking do. And the tenderness of that, because there's truth in it too. And then, of course, tomorrow probably, I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to do what I can do in my one little ineffective life here. And that doesn't mean I don't matter. It doesn't mean you don't matter. It's just, this is a piece of the truth rarely spoken about. Many people aren't willing to say, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I feel like shit about it. This all feels like shit. There's this, I know the powers in the people. We hear this all the time. But the people don't know the powers in them. And I don't know how to affect the change in consciousness and narrative for that to actually tip. Because right now, people don't actually have any power at all. A gun's only purpose is to kill something. Yeah. And if you want to go hunting, learn to use a bow and arrow. Nobody in the Western world needs to hunt right now for me. Unless they're out in the boondocks. Obviously, there's nuance and complexities to everything. But like where I live, nobody needs to do that. And somewhere in our human unfoldment, we chose war as a normal thing. And it's not. It's not natural. It's the most unnatural choice we could ever make. Most abjectly stupid choice we could make. Yeah, it's really fucked up. And people will have all kinds of arguments for, oh, we've been fighting each other since the ancient times. over resources and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but we didn't have any kind of thing that could kill, 50 people in 5 seconds. Anyway, now I'm getting political. Everything's political, by the way, but just feel tender. In the truth of, I can affect actual change in the world. I can and know without a shadow of a doubt that I have and always do affect change inside of me. That's also true. And that matters, changing inside of me. But it's not, it's not as grand and great as I would like it to be. Right? If it was grand and great and I could pour into the world what I feel inside of here, it would be a really easy, simple, ordinary life for everybody. Food, shelter, safety, water, and spending time with the people you love. That's the world I want to live in. It doesn't have to be spectacular. I don't give a fuck about luxuries. I don't think most people do. Good food, water, shelter, culture, being with each other, healing together. Horus, most rigorous swing of the pendulum to the opposite end of conflict resolution and communication. I agree. My father was forced into war as a young teenager and it fucked up his whole being. He was the most tender man and they made him hard. Yeah. War destroys humanity. War. We've been at war for generations, right? And all of that unmetabolized grief, not just unmetabolized grief, but unmetabolized trauma that never got to PTSD because it's current and ongoing. And I don't know how you recover from that. I don't know that anyone can. And that for me is the grounds that war is unnecessary and it needs to not be normalized and it should be completely condemned. But I'm just, 47-year-old mother of 5 in Switzerland. Yep, it really does. I watched him cry himself with so much anger and pain so many nights. Yeah. And then if they can't do that, how those men come back and have taken it out on generations of women and children. It just perpetuates itself. It's did you see? I didn't see this, but the Palestinian press interview asked what they miss most. Top answers: my mom, my family home gathering, my home. Yeah, yes. Nobody's like, I miss that I could easily get a hamburger. No. No, and I did see the one where she went around and she asked, how's your mental health? They were like, what the fuck are you asking me? There is no such thing. What mental health? I don't, what? It was almost like this callous fucking question to ask, but it was so poignant. It's exactly that. When you are, I don't think the world at large can even begin to understand, because by design the information is being kept from them, what war really is, what it really means to the humans involved, both those who are the victims of war and those perpetuating war on those people. No one gets out of that unscathed. No one. No one walks away from that whole anymore. You do not return from that. And that should be what we base our policies on, our systems on, our choices on, should be based on that. No, we cannot, humanity cannot survive. Yeah, mental health is a luxury within that experience, within the reality of survival. I don't have any answers. They feel tender as fuck, helpless. It's fucking sad. And I'm just going to keep on keeping on like I always do, as I encourage others to do. If you're falling apart, if you feel like shit about the way the world is, it's okay. Welcome to being human. I'm going to end here and let this go up. Not really part of my launch, but it is part of my launch because here's the honesty, right? I'm a human, real human, with real feelings all the time, regardless of what business I'm running or what kids I'm raising or what the fuck I'm doing in my life. I'm a human with feelings who is deeply touched by what is happening in the world we all live in together. But think about in this case, nobody. They're not a mess in a few years, they're a mess right now. To be able to do, you're welcome to do what they're doing, they're already a mess. So from my tender heart to your tender heart, I'll see you on the other side.